Welcome back to another episode of Kicking It with Coach Red, where we bring you all the news, stories, takes, and opinions about your favorite teams from the Pacific Northwest, from the good to the bad to the Mariners.
Sweet, sweet Mariners are here.
It's Mariners episode time.
Yes, sir.
Before we dive into the Mariners episode, big news today coming out of the Seattle Seahawks. Mike McDonald is the head coach, the guy that I've been pounding the table about since the beginning. And I just want to pat myself on the back real quick. In the last episode, I put a lot of Mike McDonald stuff out there. I gave you 9 potential offensive coordinators, and it looks like the early leader in the clubhouse is T. Martin, the quarterback's coach for the Ravens, who has some OC prowess at USC. And bada bing, bada boom, it feels good to be right on one and hopefully right on another. So if that doesn't sell you on why you should listen to this show, maybe this Mariners episode will. But before we get into that, why don't I tell you a little bit about us? If you're looking for a guy who's right about his takes about the Seattle sports and says them before they actually happen, he's kind of like a magician, a warlock, if you will, but we like to call him Coach Red. And you can find me, Coach Red, on Twitter /X, at the real Coach Red, on Instagram at the real _Coach Red, TikTok at the real Coach Red. Also find the show over on YouTube. Search Kicking It with Coach Red. Like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, leave a comment or two. And if you're looking for a guy, what?
Don't you be too mean now.
If we're looking for a guy who's going to be more prepared for this episode than he was for the last one, because we are now sitting in his wheelhouse, which is Mariners baseball. And if you're looking for a guy like that, maybe you're looking for a guy like Cain.
That's true. Baseball is in my wheelhouse. I love this sport. But yes, I'm Cain. You can find me on Twitter at Cain2406, on YouTube at Cain06, TikTok and Cain0634. Also follow the show's socials over on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Red Pod. Follow us. Do it, freaking do it.
We didn't really have too much of a tease, but we teased this in the last episode on Monday that we would be talking about the Polanco deal. The reason I said that we were doing the head coaching debate on Monday is because by the time we would record on Wednesday, that some of the people's decisions might have been made. Ben Johnson removes himself from contention, and Mike McDonald signs on the dotted line before we record this. So kudos to us for talking about stuff before it happened. But the Polanco deal is a big deal. You got Mariners engage in a trade with the Minnesota Twins, and they get Jorge Polanco, and they trade away 4 players plus cash. So the 4 players that go back to the Twins are Justin Topa, Anthony Desclafani, Gabby Gonzalez, and Darren Bowen. Would you like me to break down the guys that we gave up or Jorge Polanco first?
Let's go with the guys we gave up real quick. So
guys that we gave up.
Topa hurts.
Topa hurts. The biggest major league contributor of the bunch is Justin Topa. Justin Topa is a guy that was a non-roster invite to spring training last year. He made the team either right out of camp or shortly after, and he evolved into a late inning guy. He finished last year as a top 5 ERA guy out of the bullpen and pitched in a bunch of high leverage situations and got his first MLB save at age 31. Next guy given up is Desclafani. Not a surprise that he does not pitch an inning for the Mariners. It was a salary swap when they got him in the Ray deal. And actually, I think for the Twins, he fits in as a good inning eater and a 5-starter. He did not. He was going to be potentially a long reliever for this team. Gabby Gonzalez, he was a top 5 prospect for the Mariners, depending on which outlet you look at. And he is a fringe top 100 prospect. Some outlets have him as high as 79, and others don't have him in the top 100 at all. This is a guy who played his first full season last year in the minors, came out really hot in low A and struggled a little bit once he got to high. This is a guy that is still multiple years away. He's only 20 years old. He's got some good tools, corner outfield prospect, and his bat's going to have to carry him to get to the bigs to stick at a corner spot because you're going to need some pop. Last guy is Darren Bowen. He's a 2022 draft pick out of 13th round. He's kind of the wild card of the bunch. I think that he's still young enough into the minor league system and put up some pretty decent numbers in the minors. So could be a guy that could ascend quickly into the Twins bullpen.
So to add to that, you know, when you do look at, yes, he's the top in the farm. And
I forgot Cash.
That's true, and Cash. But when it comes to the whole prospect thing, I kind of get hesitant with it, right? Just for the simple fact of wait till they see the big league action, right? That's really what it all comes down to at the end of the day. You know, you have guys like Juan Soto and J Rod, it just, you know, along those lines that are just generational players and are just stars from the second they hit the field. And it's not like that with everybody. So the Gabby Gonzalez thing, yeah, it could hurt just a little bit. You did have to give up a number 3 prospect in the system, but I think the return is worth it. This team is trying.
Let me do before we get into the Polanco stuff. Let me tell you where I have a very big gripe, and this is more so for this year. And I understand the uncertainty with dollars in Major League Baseball right now. Almost every team besides the Dodgers is working on restricted budgets and not really pushing the envelope. I get that. But you make the trade, you get net zero on Robbie Ray with Desclafani and Haniger. Got it. But instead of sitting there and keeping Desclafani on your team, you had to make some dollars and cents make sense for this Polanco deal because he's getting paid some money, and so is Desclafani. Topa not so much, and the other guys aren't yet for the Major League squad. If you make this deal, you made a similar deal to this last year in trading for Teoscar Hernandez, taking on the salary for the 1-year deal, and giving up Eric Swanson and a flyer in the minor leagues. I think you could have got this done. It was no secret that Jorge Polanco was getting shopped. They have a bevy of riches along the infield. It's an older guy, and they were trying to shed payroll. You could have made this deal for Justin Topa and Darren Bowen by including Desclafani in this deal, which I think helps the Twins a bunch. You have to throw in a prospect and a highly rated prospect. He's a top 5 guy, like I said, and fringe top 100. They've done this multiple times with Kelnick, who still had some promise to offload the Evan White and Marco Gonzalez deals. And I'm pissed because you don't look at this team and look at their outfield prospects. You've got the likes of Zach DeLoach, who hasn't made it to the bigs yet. Taylor Trammell, who's another guy that was this is one of those guys that you talked about. This was a high prospect guy. He hasn't put it together in the bigs. So you don't know what you're going to get. You could get greatness. You could get mediocrity. That's why they're called prospects. They aren't, they're a prospect. You're assuming what they're going to do once they hit the bigs. But don't pigeonhole yourself to save a few dollars. From every indication, after this deal, the Mariners still have about $20 million to work with, and some of that's going to be used potentially for deals in season if you're in the mix to go get a player. But if you just absorb this money and you put, I think if you give up Topa, you give up Bowen, that puts you at about $9 million in the negative, so $11 million to work with throughout the year. Desclafani, injury insurance to your starting staff, workload insurance for your starting staff when you've got a relatively young 4 group of starters. And Wu and Miller that have both pitched the most innings that they've ever pitched in professional baseball last year, and Wu's had injury history. So to get out of some of that and to even include cash with this is bananas. The Twins should have said, thank you so much for getting out of this. We will take a number 5 starter. He's going to get paid more than any number 5 starter in the league that we feel comfortable paying. But thank you for getting us out of this contract for multiple years. We only have 1 year. We can reassess once potentially the Amazon deal is in place. I am so frustrated that you had to give up that prospect to include Desclafani.
Well, and on top of it, right, it is like last year's deal. Like when we gave up Novelli Marte, I felt like Novelli Marte was close, was really close for the team.
But you got
Gino.
No, you got
Eugenio Suarez, or was it Luis Castillo?
Luis Castillo.
Who did they give up?
Starter.
Oh no, they gave up 2 other guys for Gino.
Brandon Williamson and
I thought it was Novelli Marte.
Phillip,
I thought it was a higher guy because they had to take on most of the money too. I don't know. Whatever.
No, they gave up Arroyo and Novelli Marte.
Oh, that's right. It was
in
those were the 2
Castillo deal.
Okay. But yeah, they could have got it done probably a different way. And yes, the cash thing is ridiculous because
I don't know how much
seems
it is.
like
apparently it's just to cover the difference between Polanco and the Desclafani and Topa combined.
Yeah. But let's just jump into Jorge Polanco, dude. Like, yeah, the glaring signs of this team is here this year, right? And it's, oh my gosh, there's so many people that are injury prone. Like, But
the Mariners have traded. Their big thing was, we want to limit strikeouts. We're clearing the shelves of guys who struck out a lot, but they're replacing those guys with guys that are getting hurt. You are living on a high wire.
Yes, they are. And so you hope for Lady Luck this year. But man, when Polanco is on the field, he definitely makes a difference. I believe 2019 and 2020 were his 2 combined full years. And that was also the years Mitch Garver was there. And Polanco mashes from both sides. He plays a good second base. I'm tired of this rotation.
He plays an all right second base.
He's better than most. So,
well, I think that defensive statistics would argue against you.
He's more serviceable than most people.
Sure.
There you go. But I've talked about this. Get me some more switch hitters in this lineup. I love switch hitters. He can mash from the left. He can mash from the right. The dude, when he makes contact, he's got a 89% barrel rate. Love to see that. Not many of the Mariners have good barrel rates outside of the few. This is a guy that when he makes contact, the ball flies far. It really does. I've seen him hit monster pimp jobs just left and right. And I'm excited for him to come in and make a difference because that's just something that this team hasn't had, right? And with all the moves that I've seen, I feel like they're in a better spot offensively than they were. So I like the additions.
He brings you, excluding the COVID shortened season with Dylan Moore catching fire in that short season at second base, he brings you a steady non-platoon second baseman that has produced at the major league level, the likes you haven't had since you had Robinson Cano. So you talked about the health thing. In the last 2 years, he combined for just over 1 year worth of playing time, 184 games within the last 2 years. Still over that time, he still was top 5 in WAR for second baseman. And he actually was slightly ahead of Marcus Semien, which blew my freaking mind. But in those 184 games the last 2 years, he has 34 doubles, 30 homers, 104 ribbies, and a batting average of 234. When you look at his last full season, which was 2021, he played, I think, 152 games that year, clocked in with 35 doubles, 33 homers, 98 RBIs, and a 269 batting average. So this is a guy that when healthy is going to slot into the middle of your lineup. So with the additions that you made so far this season, you're looking at a starting roster where JP and Julio are batting probably 1 and 2 still. You're going to have between 3, 4, and 5, you're going to have some mixture of Jorge Polanco, Cal Raleigh, Mitch Garver. Right behind that, in your 6, 7 hole and 8 hole, a mixture wherever you want to put them of Mitch Haniger, Ty France, and Luke Rayleigh. And then you're going to round out the 9 with either Luis Urias or Josh Rojas. And when you look at the team that rolled out of spring training last year, granted you had some injuries, but when you look at this team as they're currently constructed, I would say that from the end of the year and even the beginning of the year, this lineup is a lot longer. You do have more contact. You do have less strikeouts. And it's long and it's strong and it's down to get the friction on.
Yeah.
And I'm ready to get guys on base. I've said this in the past. I love the long ball with the best of them, right? But give me guys to get on base. Doubles, singles, and triples also produce runs. And when you are trading on base percentage and elevating those strikeouts for power, it makes your team live on the razor's edge. Because if you aren't putting the ball out of the park, you're not winning as many games. When you look at this team, the strength is in the starters. You've got 3 starters right now who are top 10 in odds to win Cy Young, and that's Luis Castillo, George Kirby, and Logan Gilbert. They're all in the top 10 odds to do that. And then you've got 2 young starters who pitched pretty well last year, given that it was their first step into the majors, especially Bryce Miller. When he started, kind of went up and down. Wu was beat up a little bit up at the beginning and then kind of really came on strong. So this team is going to come and go how this pitching staff goes. But I think that you've given that pitching staff a little bit more leeway with the additions of power, a little bit less than what you had before, but more contact.
Yes.
There's more doubles that have entered this team.
Yes.
There's
there is.
Also guys that like ultimate wild card is Mitch Haniger. How many games is he going to play? But the dude can hit well at T-Mobile Park. He did it for
39 home runs in his last season as a Mariner.
And you look at some guys that lose a little bit in the Marine layer and they lose that little bit of power. When I look at Mitch Haniger highlights, 85% of them happened at T-Mobile.
Yes, they did. And
he's a guy that can clutch up.
Rocks when he hits them.
Oh, get rock hard for Mitch.
I love Mitch Haniger. High five to dude at a game because of Mitch. It was great.
So Polanco makes this team better.
Yes.
Especially the lineup. You do now have some guys when you look at some of the trades. You get Luis Urias and you're trading away Isaiah Campbell, and now Topa. Campbell had worked his way into some high leverage situations. Topa is a high leverage guy for you. So there is going to be some shoes to fill in that bullpen. But before we talk about some guys that are on the bubble to make the opening day roster, which is what we're going to finish up with, talk about another little trade where apparently 2-day span, Mariners said, I know we haven't spent any money, but we're going to give some money to the Twins along with 4 players. And we're also, thank you, Adam Frazier, for signing with the Royals. And they were going to DFA Samad Taylor, who the Mariners exchanged some cash to fill out their 40-man roster. Samad Taylor is infielder by trade, but could play a little bit of outfield. I said he's a fun piece. He's a contact-heavy guy who is speedy on the base paths. And if you were asking me to find 2 people that he reminds me of, the easiest one is a younger version of Sam Haggerty or a little bit of Gerard Dyson with him, because Gerard Dyson was Sam Haggerty gives you a little bit more power than Samad Taylor does. But I would say that Gerard Dyson is Samad Taylor, speed and contact.
Yep. He's going to, I believe last year in the minors, he stole 55 bags. So
Well,
it's pretty impressive.
he also, I think I was looking at a stat where he had 60 plate appearances in the bigs, 12 hits, and 8 stolen bases in the bigs. So
He's going to get bags.
when you look at a slew of guys that the Mariners either have in their minor league system or well, they're all in the minor league system because I'm going to say that Samad Taylor starts the year in the minors. But when you look at it, they do have a bevy of speed because you look at Samad Taylor, like you said, total on the year, I think he was right around 50 bags. You had Ryan Bliss, who I think clocked in with 49 bags.
Yeah,
And
he
then
was
you had
around 50.
Jonathan Classe, who was over 70 bags. Like,
Yeah.
there's a speed movement going on in the minor leagues right now.
And then what Julio did last year. Granted, the 30 is still good.
Well, and I think that you're going to see those numbers decline a little bit. I think he's still going to use it as a tool, but as important as Julio is, you're not going to take the risk of tweaking a knee, just trying to get that extra bag. In big time moments, you will, but I think that you'll see those numbers come down to probably about 20, 25 a year for Julio.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I mean, if he's batting 280, hitting 35 dingers, and clocking in with 100 plus RBIs and finishing top 3 in MVP, I don't give a shit how many stolen bases he has. I want him on the field hitting lasers
Yes.
and running
Yes.
out an infield single to first base. I'll take that over a stolen base. Give me that OBP.
Oh.
All right. Let's go do a little bit of roster battle. So spring training is just around the corner, and we are under 60 days until the start of the season. And it's early. We don't know. We haven't seen these guys. And I know I'm the biggest proponent of not buying into the hype during spring training. The highs aren't necessarily as high as they need to be, and the lows often get exaggerated. Give me a month into the season, and then we'll talk. If those trends have still uh, really sat out there and really marinated and you're still coming up with the same thing. But we've got a couple of spots. We're going to talk about two position players. I'm going to talk about two that I think are battling for a roster spot. You'll talk about two that are battling for a roster spot, and we'll do the same thing with some pitchers. Spoiler alert, the Mariners' top 5 is set, barring any injury, so we'll be talking about relievers. So let me start off with this one. I think one of the positions that you're going to see a little bit of a position battle for is backup catcher behind Cal Raleigh. Cal Raleigh was a tank. He caught a ton of games last year. Not so much earlier in the year because you had Tom Murphy, but after he went down, you threw in a bunch of guys and they were not getting much time behind the dish. I think Luis Torrens got a little bit at the end, and I can't even tell
Brian
you.
O'Keefe.
Brian O'Keefe.
Terrible.
So you sit there in the offseason and your depth at the major league level or potential major league level are guys that you acquired in trades. So you swapped a younger catcher with the Rays to go get Blake Hunt, who is going into year 20, his 25-year-old age. He's a guy that's caught at AAA but hasn't broached the big club. Then in the Gino Suarez deal, you get Zebi Zavala. He's a 30-year-old and he's been a backup catcher. He's been in the league primarily for the White Sox and a little bit at the tail end for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Very limited at bats for the Diamondbacks last year, but actually hit decently well. But he batted 345, but I think he had like 12 at bats, maybe 15. So I'm going to discount that. So Zavala has been in the league. He's a career .2 WAR player.
Love that.
In the majors, he's got a 210 batting average, 14 homers, 21 doubles, and 54 RBIs across, I believe it's 5 or 6 seasons. With Blake Hunt, 25 years old, all the careers in the minors. In the minors, 245 hitter, 36 stingers, 95 doubles, 204 RBIs. Where do I think this is going to go? I think this could go down to the very end. This one could legitimately be who's playing better right off the jump. Since they're both new to the organization, they're really going to have to get with these pitchers. They don't know them very well. So I think that's going to be a big key. Zevi Zavala gives you the plus in that on being in the MLB, dealing with major league pitchers, and being on multiple teams. I think that Blake Hunt gives you a little bit more upside because Zebi Zavala is going to be there. He's going to catch once a week at best, I hope. I think Blake Hunt, if I want to give Cal a night off, right, he's going to be a run producer for you. He was a big RBI guy for you last year. He's going to be batting in the middle of your lineup, and he's one of the guys that is your power sources. So if I'm going to be taking Cal lineup, I either want a guy that is nails defensively, which Zebi Zavala is listed as an average to above average defensive catcher. But I would love to see Blake Hunt make this team because I think that he gives you a little bit more offensive upside. Granted, we haven't seen him in the bigs at all, but with Zebi Zavala, you get just a guy.
Right. We don't need just a guy filling in on the days that Cal's gone.
The end of the day, though, I think out of camp, Zebi Zavala is the guy that wins the backup catching job. I think with Hunt, you still want him playing pretty much every day down in AAA and getting to learn this pitching staff. He's a younger guy. I think that he has promised to be a backup before you get into a weird place. You're going to get into a weird place. Cal Raleigh is a Scott Boras agent. He is going to test the market, and he is going to get paid. Harry Ford is not too far away from that. So you're going to get to a point here where you're going to decide, are you going to make a big deal and keep Cal Raleigh and make sure you are setting that aside to continue to have him be a leader? And if you're going to do that, you are most likely looking at trading Harry Ford at some point because someone will pay a king's ransom for an offensive upside catcher because Cal Raleigh is one of them. So I want a guy that is consistent. I want a guy that can handle a pitching staff. And I think that Zebi Zavala gives you that best chance coming out of spring training. But I wouldn't be shocked if at some point, if Blake Hunt is tearing up the ball in AAA, that they might do a little flippy flop and he comes up and kind of gives Cal that rest during the dog days of summer, giving him 2 days off. But I like the potential upside offensively that Hunt gives you, but give me Zebi Zavala to start the year.
Okay. I like that. All right. So my two position players, it sucks. It really does, but you can't really help it. Right now, I think the biggest thing is Dylan Moore versus Sam Haggerty. They're both kind of the same player outside of the base pass stuff. Sam Haggerty is faster, but
not much faster though.
Not much, but man, Dylan Moore, you know what you get with him, right? He kills lefties, and he's fast, great glove in the field, and is a great rest day guy. He can play anywhere in the field, just about, except. And then, when you get Sam Haggerty, yeah, he's got the speed. He's a switch hitter. Love to see that. But my biggest thing with him is just injuries kind of keep him off the field. And when he does come back, he's not bouncing back kind of like we've expected him to. And Dylan Moore also had a very down year. But with the additions that they've made, it's tough for both of them to be on the opening day roster. And I think I got to give it to Demo, right? He's been there longer. And I feel like there's just so many more Demo big moments. I know Sam Haggerty had that one at the end of the year they made the playoffs. But outside of that, you really don't have much. And the Grand Slam at T-Mobile against the Astros. Iconic. I really think Dylan Moore makes out of camp. He can basically play the whole second to the left side of the infield. He's going to play everywhere, probably except center in the outfield. If they do that, just depending on, I got to give it to Demo, man. We're a Demo channel. We got to always rep the Demo guy. So
I'm going to give a little bit more context. So both Demo and Haggerty coming out of spring training, they didn't have a spring training. They were both injured coming off. I think they were both core issues as well. Haggerty was injured at the tail end of last year. Demo was dealing with core injury, so both were late to start. Like you were saying with the bounce back, you saw a stretch in time where Demo got hot. He had a week and a half where he was putting the ball out of the park, and you didn't see that spike because when Sam Haggerty had those magical moments in the 2022 season, he was putting the ball over the fence and he was making great plays in the outfield. He was taking bases. He was hitting an inside the park home run. But with Sam Haggerty, he could play corner outfield and second base. Dylan Moore can play first base, second base, shortstop, third base, left field, center field, and right field. He has filled in for Julio. When you look at the construction of this team as it currently sits, if we're saying, Cade Marlowe's not up on this team, Taylor Trammell's not up on this team, you look at those guys, Luke Raley can play center field. I think he's better suited in the corner. Mitch Haniger is not playing center field. And I will close my eyes every time a ball is hit to center field at Dom Canzone steps there. It is a mystery when he's in the outfield. Sometimes it's really cool, and other times I'm like, this looks like a baby giraffe that was just, birthed. And he is stumbling and mumbling and bumbling out there, and it is a wild ride. So Dylan Moore gives you the most positional flexibility, and versatile. Dylan Moore has made web gems at second base, shortstop, third base, center field, right field, and left field. I think that having that ability for him to play infield, outfield, I think Sam Haggerty, as soon as someone gets hit with the injury bug, is the first guy back up. Yep. You know that. He's a reliable piece. And when you can get both of these guys going, they do a lot for you. They can swipe bases at the end of the game. They can be a defensive upgrade later in the game to a Dom Canzone, a Mitch Haniger. Mm-hmm. So they give you those pieces. But yeah, I'm a Demo dude, man. You know that.
Yeah,
I love Ham Swaggerty. I love him, but I don't love him as much as Demo.
Demo just has a very special place in our heart.
Yes. All right. The next battle that we're going to go with is a bullpen battle. And two guys that I want to talk about is Trent Thornton and Ty Buttery. Give a little bit of breakdown. Trent Thornton last year was DFA'd by the Blue Jays and was DFA'd with the Blue Jays with a pretty darn good ERA. Comes over to the Mariners. Wasn't really a high leverage guy. Kind of a long reliever guy. Can pitch you multiple innings if you need it. He's funky though, man. He's got 5 pitches out of the bullpen.
I love that.
Comes with a fastball, fastball, sinker, sweeper, curveball, and slider. I didn't see slider until the end. My bad. Fastball tops out at about 94, and his slowest pitch is the sweeper that clocks in at 79. What I like about Trent Taylor is goofy glasses. He's just a goofball. He's a bullpen guy. I played college baseball. He is a pitcher. When you draw a pitcher in the lab, he resembles most of the pitchers I played college ball with. A little weird. That's funky glasses rolling. But he brings you something that you don't get a lot out of bullpens, which is a 5-pitch mix.
Yes.
He could be that guy, especially with you losing Desclafani. And especially early in the year, you're going to look at especially Wu and Miller kind of limiting some innings, not pushing that pitch count super high. So having a guy that can go a little bit longer, I think, is key. Now let's talk about Ty Buttery. Has not pitched in the majors since 2020. A little bit of injury, played in a little bit of minors, played a little bit overseas. Numbers haven't been great since coming back from injury, but I'm looking back at the 2020 numbers as Baseball Savant does not give me the other years. So when you look at him from that time, fastball at 96. Slider clocks in at 82. He's got a 3-pitch mix, fastball, slider, and changeup. His changeup clocks in, I think, at 89. So pretty fast change there. But this guy was a closer for the Angels. You lost a high leverage guy in Topa. You lost a guy that was getting some high leverage situations in Isaiah Campbell. Ty Buttery he has the experience to hop into those situations. Where do I think that they fit? I think you give Trent Thornton the nod coming out of camp because you need those longer innings. He brings you more. And I think that you do have some guys on this team, which your lefties that finished the year, Gabe Spire, who worked his way into high leverage situations, and Sauce. Sauce can also give you a few multiple innings, and he can pitch in higher leverage situations as well as needed. Buttery, I think, is a guy that I think he needs to get right a little bit more. Yes, he has the upside to be a late inning guy for you. And the Mariners have done a phenomenal job in multiple years at getting guys and pumping them up as non-roster invites to spring training. Paul Sewald, Justin Topa, are Casey Sadler, Nick Markavicius are a few names that have been NFI guys that have worked their way into lore for this team and super high leverage situations. So give me Trent Thornton for now. And I think that he probably rides the rest of the season out, but you never know. You look at, Drew Steckenrider, who was an end of your bullpen guy one year, and the next year does not start out the year well and is DFA'd 4 months into the season, and no one's touched him since.
Right.
So give me Trent Thornton in his goofy ass glasses.
I like it. All right. My two pitchers, I kind of went a little bit out there, I think, with these two.
You didn't.
Okay, that's fair. So I have Carlos Vargas and Jackson Kowar. Kowar you got in the Kelenic deal, and Vargas you got in the Gino deal. And the thing I look about with Vargas, I'll start with him, doesn't have much time up. He's 24 years old, kind of reminds you a lot of another pitcher we have on staff, Andres Munoz. This guy can pump heat. Let's see. He's got a 4-seamer, cutter, sinker, and changeup. 4-pitch mix. That's a great mix if you really think about it. So his 4-seamer, that's coming in at, where's the miles per hour on this? I've never used Baseball Savant, so, it's first time for everything. Well, when I looked earlier, it was like he clocked it at 99 on
the average.
Yeah, on his fastball.
Touch triple digits.
I didn't see much when I was looking at another site that he didn't tell me that he threw a sinker, cutter, or a changeup. That just said he threw a fastball and a slider. But I would imagine the cutter, he throws 37% of the time, sinker 21%. Barely throws his changeup, which, if you can get your sinker right, it acts like one just a lot faster. I like it. It's more than Andres Munoz with the 2-seam, 4-seam, and slider. I just like the little mix that he's got going there. His ERA wasn't great. 5.79 in 4 innings pitched. Did give 7 strikeouts, though. So I think if this Mariners staff can work with him a little bit, kind of dial him in, that is one big thing with him is he's not very accurate. But I think if they can dial that in a little bit, you could bring him in the middle of the game if you have to take a starter out pretty early, trying to get a little heat, and then you bring in Matt Brash in the later innings, followed by Munoz, kind of give him a little different things to look at. And then I'm going to jump over to the Jackson Kowar. He's got 3 seasons of MLB experience. And that's kind of what you look at coming into spring training, right? You're giving the guys that have a couple years. He's 27. So he's a little older and have faced some of the league. So you're looking at 2021, 11.27 ERA. Not the greatest.
Pretty
Not
good.
good at all. 2022, 9.77. Then you go to last year,
Getting better every year.
6.43. It is. It is. And this Mariners pitching staff, as we talked about, has done great things with many guys. It seems like they kind of get the best out of everybody, which you didn't see like 5 years ago with this team, maybe 10 years ago. But you're looking at a guy who throws four-seamer, changeup, and a slider. They're the generic pitches for a pitcher. 38, 35, 26. He likes to mix it up in there. And I think if you can get that slider to bite just a little more, you're going to get a lot of guys on it. Out of camp, I'm going to give it to Kowar just because he's got the time. And you're going to throw him in at not high leverage just yet. See if you can get him there. But I think Kowar makes it out of camp because you just got to get Vargas under control. I think if you get him down in the minors in AAA, half the year, maybe just this full year this year, get him under control, bring him up next year or halfway through the year.
For Kowar, he is a former first-round draft pick and came up out of the Royal system. The Royal system has not been super good to pitching prospects. The only one that they've really done a good job of recently is Brady Singer, who he slipped in the draft more than I would have thought when he went out, but that guy looked like he was ready when he came out of Florida. So how much did the Royal system do? Kowar is a former starter. I think that that's going to be the key aspect of this because I think that you will want guys that can pitch multiple innings in this bullpen at the start of the year. Could he progress into a high leverage guy? Yes, he could. And I think you hit the nail on the head with Vargas. Is the dude pumps Ched, but he runs like a super high walk percentage. Super duper high.
And you know what? You guys heard my takes on Andres Munoz last year. They weren't very good. I mean, not in the sense that they weren't good takes, but
I was going to say, wow, what a ringing endorsement of yourself.
I was very frustrated with the walks that Munoz put up last year, especially in those super high leverage situations. And it was against bad teams multiple nights a week. And so if you can just dial that in a little bit, I think that will be huge for this team.
I think with Vargas, you eliminate the changeup. You make it a 3-pitch mix. I think that especially when you look at these younger guys that they've put into these higher leverage situations, it's 2 or 3 pitches. And even when you look at the guys they've revamped, like Paul Sewald was a heavy fastball guy. He was fastball 70% of the time, slider, sweeper, whatever you want to call it. It was a slider back then, but now it's a sweeper, right? Okay. So those got flip-flopped. And he had the 4-seam, he had the 2-seam. And what I would really like to see is what you do see with Andres Munoz, with both of these guys, because Kowar has that arm talent as well. Mm-hmm. You look at these guys, do not put your fastball in the middle of the plate. Yes, you're pumping MPHs, but you've got to paint around the edges.
Yeah, because lots of guys are sitting dead red fastball.
Oh, and the thing is with both of these guys, yeah, there's been some bad luck stuff, and with Vargas, he's younger. He hasn't as much time in the league. He's got some very good tools, and you could have said the same thing about Kowar, but the success hasn't followed. I think that with the lab, I think that's going to help both of these guys. And like you said, I do think that Vargas starts in AAA, and he probably is the setup guy or closer there and really try to dial in that wildness. You can be effectively wild. Randy Johnson is the key to that. Sometimes he would just pull a Nuke LaLoosh from the good movie Bull Durham, like hit the bowl, like throw something outside here, get people thinking like, I don't know where this pitch is going to come. And then you throw a front door slide piece at 92 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And people are jumping out of there and you're getting a chainsaw.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
But I think Kowar gives you more versatility early in the year. He gives you a safer option.
It's a safer option, 100%. Yep. His ERA is shown throughout the years, you get him a little bit more time on the mound, and he's going to drop it a little bit. And the Mariners organization has done wonders
Well,
with
I
pitchers.
don't think he ever pitched for the Braves. I think that the Braves picked him up on waivers and then they included him in the deal for the salary dumps. So
Yeah,
he really has only learned from the Royals. Like, give me a guy who, I mean, you look at some of the other guys that we've brought in from the Royals. Like, was it Easton McGee, Luke
maybe. I
Weaver?
don't know. Oh, yeah.
So go ahead and give me Coer to start the year.
Yep, I like it.
And we would also like you to give us a follow on social media.
Got him.
You can find me, your boy, Coach Red, on X at the Real Coach Red, on Instagram at the Real _ Coach Red, TikTok at the Real Coach Red. Also find the show over on YouTube. Like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, leave a comment or two. Kane, where you at?
You can find me on Twitter, Kane2406, on YouTube at Kane06, TikTok and Kick, Kane0624. Also follow the show's socials over on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Red Pod. Follow us. Do it, freaking do it.
And as always, stay fresh.
Stay fresh, peeps.
Peace.